Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So today there's another announcement that I want to talk about because this one is regarding the Assassin update, and there's more information that I think is very interesting and that I want to share with you guys. Because as I'm sure most of you know, this update for the Assassins is one I am very excited about. So any new information that comes out that's actually really interesting, I just have to make a video about. So today we're going to be talking about the rest of the Assassins that are going to be part of the update, just part of the minor changes because they're finally revealed, and some changes that are going to be regarding one of the Assassins getting a minor update that's also going to be affecting how stealth vision is going to work regarding pink wards. So first things first, we already know the 4 champions that will be getting a major rework in the Assassin update, and those champions of course being Talon, Rengar, LeBlanc, and Katarina. But apparently there's going to be 6 Assassins that are going to be getting smaller updates, and the first of which that we'll also talk about is going to be Akali. So Riot has stated that they do believe Akali deserves a full visual gameplay update, just completely revamping how this champion works. But even having said that, she is still going to be getting some minor changes coming this Assassin rework, because honestly she's really not in the best of state at the very moment. So Riot is going to be trying to find more ways to allow Akali to outplay her opponents, because at the very moment she is somewhat of a linear type assassin. And they're also going to be trying to sort of curve out the rough edges of her being somewhat of an assassin slash fighter type champion and focus a bit more on one of the two. But on top of this, there's a huge thing happening with Akali that's somewhat of an indirect change to Akali but heavily affects her. How pink wards will now affect stealth. So let's talk about that next. So once the Assassin update rolls out, there's going to be 2 different types of stealth or invisibility type mechanics in League of Legends. The first of which actually just being called invisibility, which is a shorter term in combat stealth that makes champions completely unseen. So for example, Kha'zix's ultimate. And then there's going to be the second gameplay mechanic that will be called camouflage, which is a long-term pre-combat stealth that can be detected through proximity, for example, Evelyn's Shadow Walk. But the biggest news is the fact that pink wards, which forever have been known to counter champions like Akali because they simply counter invisibility type champions, will no longer reveal invisibility type champions. Again, don't forget, examples are Kha'zix's ultimate and Akali's W. The reason that they're doing this is because they want these champions not to be buffed or nerfed or just simply balanced around this mechanic and just being revealed at the cost of a very cheap 75 gold item. It's a very similar concept as to what they did with QSS and Zed's ultimate, or Vladimir's ultimate, or Fiora's ultimate, where you can no longer QSS it. Very similar concept. So I mean, they're trying to balance these champions around something that's not sort of indirect to them. All in all, I think this is a really interesting change, and I do feel like this will make balancing these champions much better and easier, and they will be overall just more fun to play. But that's all of the news regarding Akali, and also the stealth update regarding her W, and regarding pink wards revealing invisibility type units. But let's move into champion number 2 that's also going to be getting a small update in the Assassin rework. Echo. I was a little bit surprised when I saw his name here because for the most part Echo does seem to be somewhat of a fine champion when it comes to being an assassin, but the biggest problem with Echo for a long time now has been this whole AP Echo versus tank Echo. Now he's not going to be getting any major updates in this assassin rework, but Riot is going to be even further focusing on this issue and trying to figure out a very solid way to just make AP Echo the better choice in maybe 9 out of 10 times than tank Echo. But moving into the next champion that's also going to be getting some updates, we have Kha'zix. Again, another champion I was surprised to see because for the most part I feel like Kha'zix is a pretty good example of what an assassin champion can look like, but the changes that they're planning to do to him are actually quite good. So we all know that Kha'zix is all about evolving and adapting, hitting those power spikes and upgrading his abilities to give him even more stats or just beneficial type power. And the goal that they're trying to accomplish with Kha'zix in this assassin update is to make these evolved forms feel a bit more impactful, because at the moment, let's be completely honest, no matter where you're playing him, chances are you're evolving your Q first, your E second, and then either your ultimate or your W. There really isn't a whole lot of diversity between that. So they want to try and make it so that each evolved form actually has more beneficial impact based on the scenario and the game that you're in, and you're not always going Q first, E second, and then either your W or your ultimate. And it does luckily seem like they want to keep the whole isolation mechanic inside of Kha'zix's kit still, which is a very good thing. Following Kha'zix, we have Zed. Again, another champion I was surprised to see because Riot just constantly talks about how they feel like Zed is probably the best example of what a healthy assassin in League of Legends is. But having said that, it doesn't seem like Zed will be getting any major changes other than some fine-tuning adjustments. On top of also looking for some interesting ways to make Zed think more carefully about the opposing team composition and in particular who he chooses to deathmark throughout the game. This definitely seems quite interesting. Maybe if you deathmark the same target over and over, you'll get more beneficial stats, or vice versa. If you deathmark the same target over and over, maybe you'll have actually less damage done to them until you deathmark someone else. Not entirely sure what it can mean, but Zed is definitely getting some small changes. Next up on the list, we also have some changes happening to Fizz. Fizz is all about having this kind of unique kid where he's all about just dodging abilities and just being a very tricky fellow that outplays his opponents. And Riot is trying to keep this intact, but make it a bit more difficult for him to make the harder decisions and kind of give Fizz more incentive to play with his food before he ultimately feeds him to his shark. So that in itself already tells me that, you know what, maybe Fizz's ultimate will now do bonus damage based on missing HP, so you ultimately want to finish him off with your ultimate. It also seems like they want to put a little bit more emphasis on his laning phase and not just put him in a situation where for the most part against most matchups in the mid lane, he's forced to just sort of sit under tower and farm and get almost every single CS he possibly can while being almost starved the rest of them. And they also want to try and explore and push Fizz's unique identity as the assassin with strong initiation potential. So it definitely seems like of all the smaller assassin updates, Fizz might be getting the biggest one. But there's still one more champion to talk about, and that's gonna be Shaco. Just like Akali, Riot believes Shaco also deserves a full visual game update, but having this assassin rework come out gives them a good chance to at least fine-tune him a bit up until that moment does happen. So here's what they're planning to try and accomplish. They want to give him back some of the cool tricks that he used to have as well as some new ones, but at the same time address some of the long-term game health issues he has always presented, aka overbearing early ganks and relentless split pushing. So I'm very curious to see in what way they decide to do this. But the last thing I want to talk with you guys about also regarding this assassin update that's not really specific to champions is armor penetration. I do believe there are going to be some new items coming in for the assassin update, of course specific to the assassin champions, to sort of give them a better identity and give them more options based on different circumstances. But it does seem like they want to sort of rework the flat armor penetration stats and just sort of make it work in different ways, which I'm not entirely sure how or what they're going to be doing, of course, but this is an update that's coming part of the assassin updates, so it's something to look forward to. Other than that, guys, I mean, that is about it for this video. A whole bunch of new information regarding this assassin update that I'm very personally excited about. I hope you guys are excited for it as well. I'm extremely curious to see what they do to the 4 major changes, the 6 minor changes, the rework of the flat armor penetration stat, and all of that good stuff. So again, very excited to see what happens with this change. But if you guys did enjoy this video and learn something new, hit that like button to let me know. If you're excited for the assassin update as well, hit that like button to show your support. But I'll see you guys for the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.